Welcome back to AWE-TV. I'm Mark Pizer, and with me is David Brin, keynote speaker here at AWE 2015, astronomer, futurist, sci-fi author. So the name of your talk is titled, What Can We Expect in the Next 40 Years? Here's the question, what does the future hold for us in the next 40 years?
Well, you know, the job of science fiction is not to predict, per se. The most powerful science fiction, like 1984, prevents futures by making people aware of dangers. And so everybody nowadays is afraid of Big Brother. And that's what a lot of our politics is about. But also to poke at possibilities. Now, my fans keep a wiki tracking my predictions, especially from a novel called Earth that had web pages before there was a web. My latest novel, Existence, deals with the topic of this convention, which is augmented reality in the near future. So it portrays what a lot of these devices that are being invented around this conference and discussed in the seminar rooms will become when they mature.
Sure.
When you're walking down the street, for example, and your eyeglasses, your sunglasses, you have a camera in the corner and they scan everyone's face, look them up, and everyone has a name tag. An augmented
more
reality.
than a face. You mean literally a name tag? Or?
Literally a name tag.
Yeah.
You'll never again be at a loss for who this person is.
Right.
You click your tooth or grunt a little command.
Okay, that's the input.
And you shift augmented reality levels. And you can get the first 2 pages, 3 pages of their preening, self blog description. Or you can click again and go to another level and get a couple sentences of dissenting opinions from their ex-spouses.
Right. Whichever you choose, just the number of clicks gets you.
Now, what have we just described here? When you go into a shop in Thailand or somewhere across the world, you'll be able to make a handshake deal because the shopkeeper will know your credit rating, knowing who you are. They'll know your reputation. The handshake deal will be recorded by both of your glasses. So what you have is the village. We can know about 5,000 people with this wetware that we have.
Yeah.
But with augmented reality, you'll be able to treat as a neighbor somebody you already know. 7 billion people. And what will go away is these prosthetics that we have.
Wallets, identifications.
All prosthetics for the reputation that you didn't need when you went into the old village and you said, hey, I'll trade some bushels of wheat for these horseshoes. I'll bring them in next week. Can I have the horseshoes now? The blacksmith shrugged because you knew each other.
You knew each other through this aid of the
That's
HID.
right. Now the question, and in Werner Vindige's novel Rainbow's End, and in my novel Existence, we both show what this may be like. People walking around and using these things, and the dangers of being too distracted by the augmented reality and stepping out off the curb in front of cars, for example. This is going to cause a decade of lawsuits in the coming decade. This is why Google backed out and always had their Google Glass offset from the center point of view.
So it can be recognized that this is
so that it won't interfere and cause you to step in front of traffic. 20 years from now, all that will be solved. But in the meantime, there's going to be a golden age for lawyers.
You think 20 years, not sooner?
I think that it all depends on how much goodwill we bring to it, how much decent legislation.
Sure.
The problem is that we don't have politics in the United States of America today. It's dead because we're in stage 8 of the American Civil War. And every time America tumbles into its recurring civil war, you don't get legislation. You don't get serious attention to altering the rules so that this new industry can grow.
So you're a science fiction author. Your books cover, you kind of show what will happen, like your title, the presentation, in the next 40 years. What is science truth then? Science fiction, you're taking all these things that exist and kind of creating a story around it. But
well, I've been an engineer. I'm still a practicing scientist. So science fiction has a whole range from Game of Thrones style, just make it all up,
Right.
all the way to serious, what Einstein called the Gedanken experiment, where you use these prefrontal lobes, these lobes above the eyes, that let us explore the future. And you try to make the experiment plausible. As I said, my fans keep a wiki of my predictions, and I have some howlers that are wrong. And I'm not embarrassed about that, because you have to be daring when you explore the possibility space.
And if they're following you, they should accept what you're saying. Or
well, no, they can be as critical as they want, and that helps to keep me focused. But the fact that I have a very much above average score doesn't matter so much as the notion of telling a really, really good story that then inspires people to try to prevent the bad stuff and help make the good stuff come true.
So you're working with left and right brain. You're a scientist and you're a storyteller. You're combining those. You're futuristic.
I don't find any trouble with it. The problem is, of course, that when you're doing science, you have to be inspired by thoughts of what might be.
Sure.
But there comes a point where you have to separate it out and then go use prim procedures to make sure that you're not fooling yourself. Whereas when you're telling stories, you're part of the industry of utilizing the human ability of delusion. Now, politicians do that too. Unfortunately, us science fiction authors, we're honest about it. We say, this delusion is temporary while you are in my world. Take some things from it, but they are what ifs. Whereas politics and some of the other fields of delusion manipulation, they are less honest about it.
Sure. How does your science fiction help? How does it feed your science?
Well, they feed back and forth because I'm able to think about what if these initial bits of evidence we're getting from scientific research, what if they pan out in this direction? What if they pan out in that direction? So it's called the Gedanken experiment, the thought experiment, and you just basically project, what if this goes on? What if this were to continue? And as I said, one novel had web pages 3 years before there was a web.
Sure.
To me, it seemed obvious. But now the question is, will we get across the next 50 years? Because the next 50 years are the crucial time for humanity. If we can get across it and build grandchildren who are so much wiser than us, and create a world of abundance, as Peter Diamandis talks about in his book Abundance, then what we may get is grandchildren who are capable of building a civilization like Star Trek. It's within our reach. And we may be the only civilization in the galaxy that have it within our reach. So a lot is riding on us.
I'm pleased to hear that you have this optimistic view, which
I'm not really an optimist. I'm a contrarian. I'm an optimist because so many people are grouchy when so much is going well. To me, I think human beings are rotten, and we've had 6,000 years of horrible pyramid-shaped civilizations called feudalism, and there are lots of people trying to pound our diamond-shaped middle-class culture back into a feudal pyramid. I think there's every reason to believe that they'll succeed and we'll shut down and everything will go to hell. But that's the way things always were. We're an exception, and I wake every day in that exception. And I look around at millions and millions of people, and more millions of young people around the world every single day getting to join the adventure. And I realize that pessimism and grouchiness is being an ingrate. The people out there who are pessimistic and grouchy and are addicted to sanctimony and self-righteous anger, these are traitors to humanity because
they're not adding.
They're not actually solving problems. They're not negotiating with their enemies.
Sure.
Which if they tried, perhaps they might actually be able to get a positive sum game. And the positive sum game is the one concept that everyone should know. The positive sum game. Look it up.
Title, next 40 years, what's coming? What should we expect to see in the next year?
In the next year, we'll see more and better augmented reality. It's going to be spectacular. It's going to be fascinating. And then somebody's going to step off a curb in front of a car. And the age of lawyers will commence. So the AR guys are warned. There's some techniques to avoid the lawsuits. I have some of them in my novel existence.
Okay.
And I wish them all and us all the best of luck.
Cool. Well, we'll look forward to that. Thanks for the warning. This is AWE TV. I'm Mark Peiser, and this is David Brin. Thanks for the warning, David. Thank you.